Hi, I'm Dr. Rich Blon, a host of the Sex Act podcast. In this, the 6th edition of the podcast, I'm going to talk about the subject of my most recent newsletter, and that's really defining sex. What is sex? Everyone knows what sex is, right? Well, maybe, but it can get a little confusing at times. For instance, over a decade ago, then President Bill Clinton stood in front of a national media audience and said, I did not have sex with that Lewinsky woman, while at the same time admitting that she had performed oral sex on him, and in fact the stains on her blue dress were due to that. It made me think that he and other people like him really didn't think that oral sex was sex. So I started asking that question to my clients and my students in my college human sexuality classes. And since then, hundreds of students and clients have surprised me with their answers. Most consider oral sex to not be sex, and some consider it to be a form of foreplay, and consider themselves to be virgins even after having performed and or received oral sex. And in my mind, as a college sexuality educator, a writer, and a coach with over 30 years experience in this field, I've always felt that oral sex is sex, whether or not you consider it foreplay or not. I consider foreplay a part of sex. I told you it could get a little confusing. So what really is sex? Well, for the purpose of my work with students and clients and with you folks listening to the podcast, as an act-based sexuality educator and coach, I'm going to define sex as a broad term that refers to 5 dimensions of being a sexual being. The 5 dimensions are the biological dimension, the social dimension, the cultural dimension, the political dimension, the legal dimension, the economic dimension, and the psychological dimension. Taken together, these 5 dimensions will give you a clear picture of what sex is and really how it relates to your sexual identity as a sexual being in the present moment. When I talk about the biological dimension of your sexuality, just think about everything that has to do with your biology, your genetic inheritance from your parents, your sexual anatomy and physiology, and any other biological component of your sexuality. For example, if you're a biological female, you have a cyclic hormone pattern. In other words, on a monthly basis, your hormones fluctuate, and you menstruate and you can get pregnant. This creates an entirely different mental framework or view of the world for you than that of your brother. He doesn't menstruate. He never had to think about the bleeding, cramping. He never had to think about using tampons or sanitary napkins. He's never had to worry about missing a period or having an unintended pregnancy. Now, of course, he may have worried about creating an unintended pregnancy, but that experience is totally different than being pregnant. Simply because of your biology, you and your brother have developed a lifetime of different mental scripts related to sexuality. The social dimension of your sexuality includes your relationships with your family, your friends, your intimate partners, and other social connections that you might have through things like social media. You develop mental frames of reference and learn to be a sexual man, woman, and couple from observing your family, your parents, your friends, and other people thousands of times over in hundreds of different interpersonal situations, ranging from preparing meals to cleaning the house. All of those things give you social inputs into your sexuality. The cultural dimension of your sexuality refers to your race, your ethnicity, your socioeconomic status, and your immediate physical environment, the neighborhood that you grew up in. Your culture has shaped your beliefs, your values, and behavior patterns about sex that may or may not serve you well now in terms of your personal and sexual relationship values and goals. So although these things are part of you, they are subject to flux and to change. The political, legal, and economic dimensions of your sexuality are something that a lot of people don't think about it, but while you may not realize it, your sexuality is really strongly influenced by the laws, the economic policies, and the politics of your country. They set what I call the context and the framework for your sexual growth and development. And think of your sexual development as a board game. And there are many pieces, players, and moves involved in the game, and you and all the other people in your life are really the players and the pieces in this game. The actual game, however, is played on a board with a set of rules that govern play. So if you think of the legal, political, and economic dimensions of your sexual identity as the board and the rules that are used to govern play. These rules govern everything from access to safe legal contraception in our country to safeguards against sexual harassment. And lastly, the psychological dimension of your sexuality, I use the NAC model to describe that. And basically who you are as a sexual person is a composite of your thoughts, your feelings, the personal scripts and mental images you've developed about your personal and relationship sexuality. These thoughts, feelings, scripts, and images have been developed over the course of your lifetime and have been influenced by the other dimensions that we already discussed. Most of what you learned about sex was learned through observing and experiencing the world around you as a member of a family, a culture, and a society that's influenced by specific laws, politics, and economic forces. Now, all of this information and experiences got assimilated in your brain and formed your thoughts, feelings, scripts, and images about what it means to be a sexual person and what sexual relationships are all about. And that is who you are as a sexual person from an ACT psychological perspective. Now, I use this multi-dimensional approach to understanding sex with my students and clients to help them get unstuck and move forward towards their personal relationships, sexual values, and goals. And just to show them that sex is something that's more than just sexual activity, sexual intercourse. It's really a composite of things that contribute to being stuck and getting unstuck. So I hope this is helpful, kind of broadening the definition of sex a little bit, and I look forward to working with you next month.